So the Anti-Defamation League is partnering with the United Arab Emirates to combat hate speech in the Middle East and beyond. The newly founded Manara Center will work to spread tolerance in the region, focusing on education and cooperation with universities in the region. This, as the UN Security Council discusses a landmark resolution that would call out hate speech and extremism. Joining us now, the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt. Also with us, United Arab Emirates Ambassador to the United States, Youssef Al-Otaiba. Good to have you both with us.
Thank you so much, Youssef. It's great to have you here. This obviously is extraordinarily important. We know the history of the past of anti-Semitism, obviously, not only across the Middle East, but also anti-Semitism in Europe by Muslims in the past. Talk about why the UAE thinks it is so important to step out and condemn anti-Semitism now.
So I think the reason for the partnership is very obvious. It's Jonathan and my haircut here.
There's that. Looking good.
Now, I think if you look at the partnership and judge it based on today, I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice. Our relationship with the Anti-Defamation League goes back 20 years when my dear friend Abe Foxman started visiting us over 20 years ago. So this is, I think, more of a natural evolution of what ADL has focused on and what we need to focus on more in our region. ADL obviously focuses rightly on the increasing anti-Semitism in the U.S. and around the world. We have the same problem when it comes to extremism, hate speech, incitement. We don't think enough is being done to it, quite honestly, until it becomes a terrorism problem, until it becomes Daesh or ISIS. And so I think it's really important to focus on what happens before. How does it happen? The gradual indoctrination and the brainwashing that occurs, and then it feeds into a terrorism and extremism problem. Yeah. June is a month where we are chairing the UN Security Council, and our signature event is happening this Wednesday, and it's a resolution that we've co-sponsored with the UK to address extremism. So it's a very, very important part of who we are. It's one of our main values, and we're going to continue to address it around the world whenever we can and wherever we can.
Jonathan, your organization has, as Youssef said, has had a partnership, an ongoing partnership with the UAE. Talk about how important, though, this moment is, how groundbreaking this resolution could be in the UN.
Well, I think the UN resolution is incredibly important, but I just think about the conversation you were having in the last segment.
Yeah.
We can't just fight hate. We've also got to find hope. And again, this reaching for a glorious past, we need to be investing in a future. So it so impresses me about Youssef and so impresses me about the UAE. It's thinking about how do we fight extremism and hate by bringing together college students, by bringing together young people for conferences, exchanges, that people-to-people connections, how we fight anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and all forms of prejudice. That's what we'll do through the Manara Center.
And again, we've talked about anti-Semitism, but you just brought up a great point, also fighting Islamophobia in Israel and beyond.
That's right. Ignorance is the enemy of all of us, and leaders who promote ignorance, right, and who promote intolerance are dangerous. So the Manara Center recognizes that. So we're not going to focus on just bringing together a few grass tops leaders. It's how do we invest in the grassroots? How do we build the next generation? Again, focusing on hope, not hate.
Youssef, based upon that, can you say a little bit about the progress or the lack of it dealing with textbooks in the Arab world, in places like Egypt, the most populous country in the Arab world, in Saudi Arabia, or even beyond the Arab world, in places like Pakistan? Where do you see the movement to affect the thinking of young people on this set of issues?
So you asked the right question, Richard. This is exactly what our partnership with the ADL is designed to address. And I think there's progress, like you said, sporadic in some countries, less so in others. But you can't wait for everyone for this to actually change. You have to make some changes and hope that others will follow suit. And that's exactly what we're doing. Our textbooks have been changed. Many in the region have been changed. And I think it's going to happen as we sort of highlight these types of initiatives a little more. It is going to be less taboo. It's going to be more popular to kind of follow suit. It has become, we need to make it the norm.
Jonathan, talk a little bit more about the relationship between hate speech, a way of talking, and violence. So we know it's mobilized in our politics here in the United States. We see it mobilized in Israel. What is the relationship around the world? What is the relationship between a way of talking, which in First Amendment protects here in the United States, and extremism or violence? Talk a little bit about that.
So look, we need to recognize that it starts with words. Right? Sort of violence just doesn't spring up. It begins with ideas and the people who promote them relentlessly, if you will, religiously. And we don't call that protected speech. We call that incitement to violence. That isn't protected by our First Amendment. And so we need to recognize that when you dehumanize other people, when you demonize them and attack their humanity, that's dangerous for all of us. And whether the people spouting that kind of venom are, white supremacists, whether they are Islamist extremists, whether they are radical anti-Zionists, that is dangerous for everyone. So I think if we can recognize each other's common humanity and tamp down on that sort of hate speech, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on social media, whether it's in our politics, we'll all be better off for it.
So Jonathan, in August, you and Reverend Al and Martin Luther King III are teaming up for the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. We've heard in the past some problems, some tensions between Black Americans and between Jewish Americans. And yet you go back to that March on Washington 60 years ago, Jewish Americans were at the forefront of people that were side by side with Black Americans, not only during that march, but also the civil rights movement.
100%.
Talk about the importance of you and Reverend Al hosting that together.
As Reverend Al says, this is not a commemoration, it's a continuation, because that struggle for civil rights goes on today. And, blacks and Jews in this country have a shared history, different experiences, different kinds of suffering and trauma, but a common understanding about what it means to be oppressed. So it'll be, National Action Network, Drum Major Institute, which is Martin's organization, and ADL, along with the NAACP, the National Urban League, the Legal Defense Fund, the Lawyers Committee, and so many other civil rights organizations, and also from other communities, the Latino community, the Asian American community, the LGBTQ, and it matters. We've all got to come together and say, we want to build an America, again, that's focused on hope, not hate.
All right, and Mr. Ambassador, we don't have time to talk about sports this weekend, but I'm going to let you go ahead and gloat because what a year Man City has had.
So I almost came on the set today with a Man City jersey. I thought it would be unprofessional. So, it's been
the right call.
I think it's been an incredible run. It's just what an amazing season, what an amazing squad. Congratulations to the team, the ownership, the management. I think, to play at this level, at this competitiveness against the best in the world, to be able to accomplish a treble, I think people don't really understand how hard it is, and you can just see it on the players' faces after the game. So it's a very, very happy week and month, and I think they really worked very hard and deserved it.
All right, CEO and National Director of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, and United Arab Emirates Ambassador to the United States, Yusuf Al-Otaiba. Thank you both very much for being on this morning.
Greatly appreciate it.